Federation of India, Kalikesh Singhdeo. In Paris, we were all worried. I remember I was on a train. I didn't back him to win a medal. The shooting competition was going on in Châteauroux, which was about 3.5 hours. Yes, Manu was there. 2 of my colleagues were there covering shooting. But that particular day, there was the Nikhat Zareen bout, so I had to take a call. Should I go to this? Should I go to that? 2 of my colleagues were there. All of a sudden, as we were on the train, we are seeing, in the final, after the first 5 shots, 10 shots, Swapnil Kusale going up and up and up. Absolute dream run at the Paris Games to win India a medal. Put your hands together for Olympic medalist, Swapnil Kusale. In Bengal, when I do a shooting session, one of our best, had the shooting rules been the same at the London Games, he would have ended up on the podium. With his academy, with his coaching, with everything, absolute rock star, and a dear friend of mine. Put your hands together for Joydeep Korbukar. And to moderate this session, it is a mission of Rev Sports. It is an absolute mission of Rev Sports to create all my journalists and convert them into multi-sport journalists, not cricket journalists. There's nothing called cricket journalists in this country. To do that, 2 of my dear, colleagues and people who I nurture on a day-to-day basis, Rohan Chaudhary and Gargi Raut, welcome on stage.
Hello everyone, hope everyone has had a good start to the day. We have absolute shooting royalty on the stage with us. Kalikesh, I'll start with you. I'll take away from your phone time. But no, that's all right, I'm just kidding. We're calling this the past 4 years the shooting revolution in India, and rightly so. But from someone who's seen it from the grassroots level and up, do you say that because of everything that's been happening in the past couple of years, especially after Paris Olympics, that the influx of volume when it comes to the younger generation in shooting, has it increased?
Gargi, thank you. I wouldn't date the revolution just to the past 4 years. I think what's important to realize is that shooting as a sport has been intensely popular in certain segments. To the extent that when we have our nationals, which starts from a pre-district, district level, pre-state, state, zonals, pre-nationals, and then nationals, we have 15,000 to 20,000 athletes participating at the national level. So you can imagine the top of the pyramid at 20,000 and the base being at 2 lakh around. There are more than 17,000 registered ranges in India, and something that you would probably miss out on. In fact, education institutions, schools, colleges, they're one of the largest feeder systems to our, caucus of Indian shooters. And that's why the younger shooters are coming up now. We had a bit of a dry spell from 2012 to 2024. And then we had an amazing tally with Swapnil, with Sarabjot and Manu winning 3 medals for India. 3 out of a total 7 Olympic medals. That's a big chunk of medals from any sport. But what we don't talk about is the number 4 positions we came to. Missing a medal by just a whisker, almost less than a millimeter, we would have had 7 medals from shooting. That's the sport and that's the excellence that India has portrayed for shooting globally. Having said that, Swapnil will tell you more about it. None of these guys are in a secure position because shooting has a very meritocracy-based selection process. It's purely based on selection trials and the scores they shoot, and we select the team very transparently. So if there are younger people coming in all the time, keeping our senior athletes on their toes, in fact the nationals and national games are won by 13 and 14-year-old kids just after the Olympics. And that's the level of sport that we are trying to encourage. And yes, shooting is one of the youngest sports, one of the most popular sports in India.
Hello. Lovely to hear that, Kalikesh sir. But Swapnil, coming to you, we were chatting outside the hall. That evening in Châteauroux actually changed perhaps your life and the course of the sport as well, because winning an Olympic medal is always special, especially in India where we starve for Olympic medals. and in winning in 50-meter 3P, one of the toughest of the events of the sport. How has that evening changed your life? How do you see yourself as a more evolved person, not just an athlete, an evolved person? And do you look back at that evening?
So, Rohan, I think for me, nothing has changed. Shooting, I have to do every time, every day. In my mind, shooting almost like my routine. So I can't go away from shooting. And the change you said, what change happened after the Olympics. For me, it's just like I need to more train and with confidently, and I have to believe self-belief, more power for more shooting and bring more medal for India. So I think this is the more major change happened in my life.
But Olympic medal is always special. How is that feeling?
So everyone watching while playing, and that time everyone's the medal, Olympic medal is little different totally. World Championship people, World Cup people, no one knows about what medal is that. But Olympic is totally different. Games, meaning totally different. So I think the medal is totally all about pressure, what builds while playing, and belief of people who watching us. And because of that trust, we won for the medal to India.
Lovely.
Joydeep, over to you next. You two are shaping the future of Indian shooting with your academy, and I want to know, when a young shooter walks into your academy, what are you looking to provide them? You know, they'll always think about the medals, they'll think about achieving something similar to what Swapnil has done, a Manu Bhakar, but what are you looking to provide them? Mental strength, conditioning, what are you thinking?
First of all, a big thanks to Boria and the entire team of Rev Sports. Trailblazers 4.0 is a landmark event which is being held in Kolkata for the last 4 years. And thanks again for inviting me here. And coming to your question, Gagi, I think these are the people who are our stars. As you mentioned about Manu, Sarvjot. So we don't have that kind of trouble to make people, the general public or the society, to make them understand what is shooting. Back then, when we were shooting, so after a long conversation, someone would ask me, next film ta konta release hoche? So they shot it's a film shooting kind of a thing. So now when they come to our academy, they ask, okay, you teach pistol or rifle? Air rifle, 10 meters, or you have a 50-meter range. So the awareness, you can understand from this. Parents, of kids, 2.5 years, 3 years, they are calling us to enroll their kids in shooting sports. So that is I would say the revolution which has come. And thanks to these heroes. You could have asked me that question, in fact, how do you feel when you win a medal at the Olympics? I would tell you the answer better, I think, from Swapnil. So it's just a thin margin from 4th position to 3rd position. That makes a huge difference. But coming to your question again, the grassroots things, which Mr. President very importantly noted, the first answer, that these are the grassroots things coming up, the academies. I would definitely appreciate those coaches who are not stars. They've not been international shooters or anything, maybe state level shooter, but at least they have, given the infrastructure, which is the main in shooting sport. Because, shooting sport is something which is not very natural. You cannot, use a bare ground to play shooting sport. You need some basic infrastructure. So that is what exactly we try to provide at a low cost for the beginners. To answer more precisely to your question is that I try to follow what I have not got in my younger years. So exactly the solution comes from there. I need to provide those things which I didn't get. So I didn't have a proper range to shoot. I had to wait 13 years for my own rifle. So why not I buy a few rifles and rent it out for the kids so that they can do it for as meager as 2,500 a month. That's actually achievable, because the infrastructure, whatever it may be, it might not be a state of the art the electronic targets or anything. We can provide them with paper targets as well. We can have a non-air conditioned range. That is exactly what is happening. Like I think if I'm not wrong with the figures, there are 17,000 registered shooting ranges and more than 1.5 lakh registered shooters. Where are they coming from? They're coming from villages also. They're coming from suburban areas also, not only cities. That is the beauty of the sport, which has evolved in last, I would say, 10, 15 years. And we are so lucky to have Mr. President Kalike Singh Doji, because they are the dynamic people who are taking the sport forward. And that is what exactly is needed from the grassroots till the elite level.
Really nice to hear that, sir. Taking a cue from what Joydeep sir said, Kalike sir, coming to you. We are at that elite level of world shooting right now. Whatever competition we take, the Asian Championships, we do have a huge pool of athletes performing, winning medals. We finish at the top. But how to make this sport more audience friendly, where people might consume it even more? How to make the sport more consumer friendly? How to commercialize the sport better?
That's always a challenge for any sport in India except cricket, right? Money goes where viewership goes, and cricket takes 95% of it. Followed closely by maybe football here in Bengal and neighboring areas, hockey in my state of Orissa. All other sports are always, trying to commercialize, trying to get more viewership, more audience interest, and trying to go beyond their captive audience, which is the players and their parents or ex-players, academies, coaches. And we've conceived the league. Boria very kindly mentioned that in his opening statement. The fact that we are trying to do the league has got a three-pronged objective. One is to make the sport more viewer-friendly, more commercial, to give a platform to our established stars to really become household names. They already are, I think. But there's no reason why a Swapnil should be less popular than pick a name, MS Dhoni, pick any cricketer's name. I mean, how many cricketers have won Olympic medals? This man has. So why should everybody not know him also? So the whole idea of bringing that league is to bring in a commercial structure which allows our Indian shooters, some seniors, some international, and some junior shooters, to be able to perform in a commercially attractive platform, which hopefully generates interest beyond the caucus that we already have and gives them a commercial stability. Ultimately, shooting is an expensive sport. Joydeep was mentioning that. You can't pick up a ball and bat and play in the gully. You can't take a football and play around in the local park. You need a range. You need rifles. It's regulated. It's not easy to come by. The academies and all of us can put in certain amount of infrastructure. But what will really pay for it is if there's commercial interest in the sport. And that's what we're trying to build with the league. And the idea is to take the league from traditional forms of shooting, bring innovation into it, bring esports into it. These are now objectives of the Olympic movement across the board, whether it's in Asia or in the next Olympic Games which are going to be held, and try and bridge the divide between digital India and shooting as a sport. I mean, let me ask you this. What was the first toy you played with when you were young? Do you remember? I would say it's a gun. Yeah, parents probably bought you a little gun. First video game we played with, some sort of a gun-based video game. So why can't we take that interest and that attraction and bring it into our sport, which is a formal sport of shooting?
Perhaps because it's expensive, because I have tried to play rifle shooting for a couple of years in school, and your thoughts on that? It's not a very accessible sport still.
You're right, Gargi. I don't know if you picked up a gun for the first time as a child.
I do not remember. Okay. But I remember shooting a 10 the first time I held a gun.
I mean, yeah, I can believe that. I can believe that. But you're right. It's not an easily accessible sport any longer. You need licenses. If you're going into firearms, you need a range. You can't travel with weapons. It's a cumbersome process to travel with ammo and weapons across flights. And licenses are being regulated now by the governments also. So it's we as a federation have to be very careful on how we manage the entire ecosystem. One wrong move can go wrong. So you need to bring infrastructure in, but when does infrastructure come in? Not everything can be put in by the association. It has to come from private people like Joydeep. Joydeep himself was a shooter, his son is a shooter, he's got an academy. But how do you make it commercial enough for individuals to come in and set up these small little caucuses across the country, more than 17, how do we take it to 70,000? That's the goal we have in basic infrastructure and the grassroots level. Unless we achieve that, we're not going to get to, to increase the tally beyond a certain point at the top of the pyramid. You have to have a wider base at the bottom.
Right. Swapnil, and I want you to take your time answering this question because, no, I really want to get into your mind. You are walking into this Asian Games with an Olympic bronze medal. Has that relieved the pressure or is that adding to the pressure?
This upcoming Asian Games, you're saying. So pressure is there. Every athlete have different kind of pressures and every range, infrastructure, all same for all athletes. So pressure is coming from inside, like people we are talking, whom we are talking, or what kind of pressure we build inside. That's more important. And like if we say, like you said now, ki, what pressure coming. So this pressure is a negative thing, and in athlete or any athlete, big athlete or in shooting, we deny negative things or negative words. So you can say what kind of thoughts going inside your mind for the related to the Asian Games. So pressure, it will make me more scary and feel like we can say बहुत डर नहीं लगा है ऐसे. But instead of we put it in a different way, like we keep it a positive way. We say like we have new challenges and we have to face it and we will do it better. What we had in the past, but we'll do it better than the past. And that's what we do all the time, make it positive in all way or not take it in a negative way.
I'll come to Joydeep sir, but before that, I'll take a cue from what Gargi just asked Swapnil. Swapnil, one thing, this is an important year. We have the World Cups as well, the World Championship, Olympic quota qualification starts, and of course the Asian Games. But whenever it comes to these Asian Games, Olympic Games, Commonwealth Games, the multi-sport events, whole of India watches, but nobody actually follows the ISSF World Cups or the World Championships. Could you please explain to the audience, to laymen, the difference from the perspective, from a athlete's perspective, which events are perhaps more difficult to play, or what are the mindsets when you go into an World Cup or an Asian Games?
So every competition in shooting are more important, like national wise or international wise. So Asian Championship, World Championship, and again games like Asian Games, national like Olympic Games. So everything is matter till the Olympic Games. In like state-wise or national-wise, we have selection trials, different selection trials, and we have to play proper like in competition ways. And अगर उसमें अपना properly competitive score matter करता है और score maintain करा, तो we selected for World Cups. Then उसके बाद ranking में आते हैं. Then we go for Asian Games, and still we maintain the like scoring and everything, the ranking. Then we go for the World Championship, and after that like we play most of the time World Cups, and the ranking points of playing World Cup, they goes tally, and we selected for the Olympic Games selection trials. As per this, all the competitions we play in this like 4 years में, we have that more important competition every matters in our competition arena.
Yes, very important, very articulately explained. Joydeep sir, coming to you, if we look into the current scenario of Indian shooting, we do have a lot of competition, top competitions. I have spoken to many athletes. They have said that the national trials are perhaps more difficult than the international competitions. The competition is so high. How has India become this hugely strong in shooting? What are the changes that have happened in the last few years, and how are the Indian shooters so good coming up? Is there a science behind it?
Rohan, very important question. There's no simple straight answer, one answer to this, but it is, I guess, a little bit of related to what you asked Swapnil in the last question. I think I'll just add to what Swapnil said is that, like, each and every competition in India is very important for the shooters who wish to qualify for the Olympics. Olympics is the last, which, of course, like, everybody wishes to have that one medal around his or her neck. Most of the national records in India in shooting sport, you have to, like, listen to this. I don't need to have the statistics in front of me, but I can tell you, most of the national records which are officially there in the NRAI website also, it's very transparent, are higher than the Olympic records. So this is what this is what the level of competitiveness in shooting in India it is. Somebody comes to us and says, like, we are putting our child to start shooting because it's competitively easier sport than cricket or football or whatever the other sports, like, which are popular. But it is not so. 20,000 athletes taking part in a national champion. Has you ever heard about this number? In a single national championship, 20,000, yes, 20,000 coming from different tiers of qualification, from the pre-state, districts, to the state, to the Mavalanka, like, the national qualifiers. And then you come to the national championship, and that to 20,000 athletes taking part in a single national championship. That is the level of competitiveness. I've just told about the numerics, the numbers about the competition. The world records are lesser than our national records. To be in the nationals in the final, top 8. I think in one event I saw, of course, like, it was the whole 8 bunch of shooters in the national level was higher than the Olympic qualifiers, Olympic finalists. So that is the level of competition. And then that's why Swapnil was telling us it is each and every competition. Yes, somebody might, like, ask us, that's why so many competitions, why so many, like, trials with fire to get the best out of the best. The reason is the huge number. It is the quantity from which we are getting the quality. And I think that is the best part in shooting. Like, thousands and thousands of players are getting in as young as 12, 14, challenging the seniors. Of course, we can see a 14-year-old guy challenging Swapnil for the next Asian Game berth. And we shooters really do not know that whether, like, I have a very, very secured position for myself as an Olympic silver medalist or a bronze medalist or gold medalist, I'll be selected for the Asian Games or not. That is the level of uncertainty where a top shooter will not get complacent and the younger shooter will not, like, lose the fire. I think that is the reason which we are getting better and better. And of course, we are hopeful that we'll be doing even better in Los Angeles 2028.
Incredible insight there. And Kalikesh, final question of the panel here. I want to understand your philosophy as a president. And rifle shooting or shooting in general is one of the most structured sports in India. And it's very well organized. At the same time, the commercial aspect of it obviously still remains a challenge. And I do believe it's because it's such a nuanced sport, it's difficult to target the mass. How do you look at these challenges? Are you building on what's already there, or are you focusing on the lack of things? How are you focusing on it?
Great question, Gargi. We have a structure which is there. And of course, the easiest thing to do is to take the low-hanging fruits. So how do we create base infrastructure? How do we create more academies which specialize in high-performance training? And when these guys come to the Indian level in the national squad, how do we have a more adaptive high-performance training program for them, whether it's psychologists, nutritionists? I'll give you an example. It's a technical sport. There's a lot of science behind the sport. And these shooters have mind of steel. I've seen Swapnil recover from a bad shot and go ahead and win medals at the World Championship, which is much tougher as a competitive platform than the Olympic is, because you have many more shooters shooting. So these guys are very, very mentally strong. But then how do we give them that extra edge to go ahead and go from a bronze to a gold. They have it in them. We can't teach them technically because they really know all about the sport. We can help them in the process. But what we can do as a federation is ensure that they get what they need to go ahead and get the medals. Having said that, that's on the high performance side. We need to really understand how to create more people who get incentivized and encouraged to participate in shooting, to ensure that there's more of a participation at the mid-level. I think where we see a gap is at the mid-level, where we need to have more academies who can individually and independently bring up shooters to a certain level so that the federation can take them on after that. Our emphasis remains at the junior program, where we can catch our shooters very young, and that really works very well for us, because amongst the current team, about 80% of them would have gone through our junior program. So we catch them very young. We are now looking at establishing who our shooters would be for 2028 Olympics, which is Swapnil and his colleagues in front of you. 2032 Olympics, that's a 17-year-old shooter in front of us right now. And 36 Olympics is a 12 to 13-year-old shooter. We have already started to identify who these shooters could be and make sure we give them the correct, right support that they require from our junior program, going and ensuring a smooth transition from there into the senior program, so they actually become, strongest steel when it comes to testing their metal. So yeah, it's a bit of both, trying to establish what the gaps are, filling them up, and of course building on what already exists.
Just to end it, it was a fantastic session. Kalikesh said, just to grab a headline out of you, do you want to predict a number for the Asian Games, for the shooting?
For the Asian Games?
For the Asian Games.
So we had won 26 medals last time in the Asian Games, I think. Out of India's 100 medals or so. And we had won 9 golds out of the 26 golds India had won. This time the team gets a little shorter. Last time we had a full team going. This time, because of logistical reasons, Japan has asked us to limit the team to 30. I think we will equal that amount. I wouldn't go beyond that. I will equal that amount. Because we have a smaller team going to the Asian Games. Yeah.
Kalikesh is like an umpire. Why? Because every time a federation does something wrong, you blast him. He does something well, nobody bothers. So the federation is like that, but fantastic. And you, I don't know how many of you watch shooting closely. I do. Rohan has now done, taken that from me. We watch it on YouTube, the live telecasts. We follow the scoring on ISSF. And it's an addictive sport because it's that 0.1. And you know what 0.1? I'll close it because lunch is being served. After the Rio Olympic Games, and this is instructive before I get Anil Singh to come on stage and do the felicitation for this panel. So Abhinav had lost the Rio 2016 final. And he and I are very close friends. So I said, what is 0.1? Can you explain? And let me take the liberty of asking Gargi to do this. Anil, where you are seated, or Neha, where you are seated, or where, that table. Gargi, just lift up one strand of hair. Just one. Okay. Pratusha, Anil, Manik Babu, or Gargi, or anybody, Vinod, can you see that one strand of hair? Can you? Anyone? Abhinav lost by half of the tip of that one strand of hair. That's the difference between an Olympic medal and not winning. Anil Singh, please can I have you on stage? Dear friend, absolute champion. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Joydeep Kormukar, Swapnil Kusale, Kalikesh Singh there, of course, Gargi Raut and Rohan Chaudhary. This is a session which was a Tufani session supported by Thumbs Up. I think Shantanu and Kaustubh have had to leave to catch their flights.
Thank you, sir.
No, we'll take one in front also.
Thank you. Great stuff.
অঞ্জনবাবু আপনি থাকবেন কিন্তু বিকেলটা আপনাকে ফেলিসিটেট করতে হবে। না না পালাবেন না, থাকতে হবে। আর না হলে এখানেই আপনি ছবিটা তুলুন, দাঁড়ান, আসুন আসুন। আচ্ছা, you know, a lot of people outside told me this is the best sports conclave they've attended. Trust me, I've done many events in my life. The 2.5 days have exceeded expectations. We'll close on a high as well. Lunch is served, ladies and gentlemen. Do join us for lunch.